Welcome in to another edition of the Wolverine.com Monday Night Podcast here on the Wolverine YouTube channel. Anthony Broom here with Clayton Safey and Chris Ballas, as we are every Monday night, and always our show sponsored by our friends over at rogueshop.com. You will hear us talk about them a little bit later in the program. But guys, bye week behind us. Michigan State week, hate week. It's not just neighborly hate. It's brotherly hate. Little brotherly hate week is upon us. So a lot to sift through. I mean, obviously not a game to talk about this weekend, but a much needed refresh for all of us. I can speak for all of us there. So it's going to kind of be us just playing point guard to you guys. Throw your questions in, throw your donations in to move your questions to the front of the line, and we'll be here as long as the questions come in. So we will start with, speaking of great listeners and speaking of donations to get at the front of the line, Shane Johnson, as he does every week, gets first crack $10 donation. For those of you watching live on YouTube, we appreciate that. Fellas, usually I would intro you, but I'm just going to start you off with this. Shane says Michigan's identity forming last year is now cemented, prevent you from chucking ball over the field with time of possession while mauling you to death with better personnel, and credit to Mike Elston and a big key to number 3 scoring defense. Throwing a lot at us there. Basically what he's saying is, fellas, how do you feel now that we've had a week to decompress, to kind of evaluate what this team looks like? How do you feel the identity of this team is coming along? And Chris, we'll start out with you this week.
Yeah, you know what? It's Jim Harbaugh's identity, and that's the fun part. Shane, though, I got to give this to Shane. Shane, we were talking about this, and because you're such a great poster here, and we're going to give you this. This is the former Wolverine cover. It says, An era begins, 2008. You can see that. That's Rich Rodriguez. We can even get him to sign it for you. This thing's been sitting in my garage, and for God's sake, I can't get rid of it. So nobody wants it. Even the garbage man leaves it there, with all due respect to Rich. So anyway, Shane, it's yours, and thank you. But Shane, you're absolutely right, man. Mike Elston was a huge hire, and I said this at the time. You know what? We hinted to it on the message board, and the Notre Dame people went crazy. Ballas, you're nuts. Ballas, they're stupid. They think they're getting Mike Elston, and then guess what? Midnight Mike comes over to Michigan, but it wasn't at midnight. No. They did it right. So it was fun. And it was a great get because he is a great hire and a great Michigan man. I know he's a good friend of John Jansen's, and sorry, D Brown. But yeah, he's a friend of John Jansen's. And I knew when in talking to John that, hey, they got a good one there. But you're absolutely right, guys. This is exactly how Jim Harbaugh likes to win. And I think there's no question that he is feeling comfortable with this team and feeling really optimistic about what he can do, not just against Michigan State on Saturday, but for the rest of the year.
There's something satisfying about being able to win with physicality. That's exactly what Michigan has done. It's been their identity for the last couple of years. They got away from it a little bit, but I think he felt last year, let's get back to our roots here, be physical. But at the same time, as Shane Johnson mentions, the personnel is really good. And I think that allows them to be a little more diverse, even than what we've seen when they need to. And they probably will have to if they want to win a national championship, which they do. So we'll see that potentially come to fruition, maybe this year, maybe the year after, things like that. But you're right. It's fun to watch. And Mike Elston is doing an outstanding job. Sean Nua, I mean, he, by all accounts, he was able to stay here if he wanted to, but he decides to go to USC, which was, I think, a good move for him. He's got West Coast ties and family over there. And then Michigan gets a blessing in disguise there with Mike Elston coming home. And Chris, as you mentioned, it's just look at the reaction from the Notre Dame fans about how good Mike Elston was. They couldn't believe it. And then once it happened, they were extremely upset about that, seeing him go to a rival. So that tells you all you need to know. And then, watching the games on Saturdays, he's done a great job with that group.
Yeah, Ballas showing up to people's houses with old football preview giant blowups like he's from the Publishers Clearinghouse. It's a hilarious visual.
Yes.
Yeah,
Rita's going to be there with me with her cheese dip too. So whatever we can do to get rid of this thing, okay?
Wow, that's a great way to start. Rich Rod's huge face in 4K high definition. I shouldn't have eaten dinner before I hopped on here, but back to the identity of this team. I mean, I know it's Chris. I like how you put it in your article over the weekend that Jim Harbaugh's Michigan has arrived, and I know that early on, early on, it was apparent that there was a change there. Some of those earlier Harbaugh teams looked similar to Stanford era teams, but still kind of a missing link there. I don't know if it was an edge or a personnel thing or just the looks, but I think they finally figured it out where it's Harbaugh Stanford, but it's more like it's starting to resemble more, especially when you factor in RPO stuff on offense and being multiple in your looks on defense, disguising coverages, bringing exotic pressures from everywhere. It's those old Stanford teams mixed with sort of new age, or at least new hotness, NFL concepts and things like that. So, I love the identity that's taken shape with this group. I like the makeup of this team. Even last week, we talked to players. They're thinking about MSU. We talked to players today. Obviously, squarely the focus is on MSU. This isn't a game as we talk about it. And again, feel free to get your questions in throughout the evening. The chat is starting to fill up here a bit. I like the way this team, outside of what they do from an X's and O's perspective, I like how they handle their business on the field. So speaking of talking to people at press conferences, a little bit, and D Brown has one for us here. Harbaugh is back. Did y'all hear what he said about Lil Fish Franklin? We did all hear it. We were there. We were there at the Jim Harbaugh press conference today. All three of us, plus also shout out to John Borton, who will be live 5:30 p.m. tomorrow night on this channel. Yeah, Clayton, you want to run through what the latest in PB&J Gate?
Yeah, so we talked about last week, kind of the PB&J Gate of obviously the little skirmish shenanigan type of deal in the locker room at halftime where Penn State was feeling good about itself, only down 2 points after, having really two good plays the entire half. And it's exactly what it looked like. What Harbaugh said was that Penn State was kind of blocking Michigan from getting into its locker room, and then they were chirping and all that. And James Franklin, then a video that emerged a few days later, was in the mix yelling at Michigan coaches and things like that. And as Jim Harbaugh said, I want to give myself credit for predicting that he would talk about whining with this. You remember the tweet from about 5-6 years ago, him saying, does anybody find whining to be attractive? Just curious. And I don't even remember what that was about. It was just back when he was calling people out on Twitter. Might have been Mark D'Antonio, could have been Kirby Smart, something like that. And that's basically what he said today. He has bigger fish to fry than to worry about that type of whining. But, James Franklin looked like the ringleader of the whole thing. And it was just fun to see. What's your deal, Jim? Is somebody said that in the comments as well. It felt like that. And maybe he'll backslap Mel Tucker this weekend just to cap off a great week.
I'd be all right with that. And send him on his merry way, but you got to win the game first. But yeah, it was. You know what, James Franklin? Somebody posted in there. Used car salesman sums it up perfectly, right? Every time I see this guy, I'm like, all right, what's he going to try to sell me this week? But he's just not a. He is what he is, and you can tell that when they shake hands. There it is, Sean Patterson. When they shake hands after games, last year James Franklin didn't even look at Jim Harbaugh. Couldn't even look him in the eye. So that was wonderful. And you know what? Here's the thing. When you say that it's been an issue for a long time in the tunnel, I think it's what James Franklin said. It happened once before, and that was Ohio State and Michigan going up the tunnel. And you know what? Then you play the victim, and nobody likes that. When you're sitting there and you're holding up your team, as Jim Harbaugh said, he would look like the ringleader. And it's from keeping them from getting into their locker room. And then you sit there and cry and say, well, they, stop your guys from talking to us. Well, they kicked their ass on the field in the second half and did their talking there. So, but yeah, Franklin's a whiner. Let's be honest, man. He's that first guy that's going to shake your hand when he kicks your butt. And he's that guy that's going to sit there and cry when you kick his butt. So that's exactly who James Franklin is. And I think it was Dave Jones from PennLive.com who wrote, you know what? Penn State got its perfect fit in James Franklin, and Michigan got its perfect fit in Jim Harbaugh. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, this is an exclusive for the video edition, a little musical performance. This is me playing the world's smallest violin for James Franklin. This is what kills me about that. And we don't need to spend too much time on this, but Michigan Stadium has been around for 100 years? I don't know. You guys are more of the historians than I am. It's as simple as walking up the tunnel and going into your locker room. The visiting team gets to do it first because they're on that side of the field. Why are your guys still in the tunnel to begin with? That's pretty much sums that up right there. Get your ass back to your locker room. It's not that complicated. I'm sure that there will be a return shot over the bow from Penn State, but it's Michigan State week. Jim Harbaugh, I think, has had the final word on the matter, at least in terms of what will receive coverage and things like that. But yeah, he had to get. It was so funny because he started out that quote by saying, "Oh, we have bigger fish to fry," and then he talks about it for what, a minute and a half, and he's a petty man. It's one of the best things about him, and sometimes one of the things that kind of annoys people about him. But let's go to Sean Patterson, the aforementioned Sean Patterson, who says, any word on jerseys? All maize tops, blue pants. No, I mean, we'll see what happens with that. I know they like their big game blues. It sounds like they're going to do a blue out, or that's the unofficial plan for this weekend, or the official plan. I'm not sure what the marketing is. To me, I said it on the board last week, and this is when we can kind of just answer quick and move on to the next one. It'd beat your rival wearing the best uniforms in college sports. Blue tops, maize pants, winged helmet. That's all I need to see.
I agree with that. And you know what? I like the big game blues have kind of grown on me, especially when you win so many big games in them, right? And they look kind of cool. And during a blue out, I think that'd be really cool too. At the same time, I'm with you, man. The maize pants, blue jerseys, that to me does it. I don't want to see a maize jersey with blue pants. I think that's West Virginia-esque, if I'm not mistaken. And even though the all maize didn't really do it for me at the time, so you know I can say get off my lawn. But to me, you know what? It's beautiful. What the maize pants, the blue jersey, and the all blues as number 2 for me.
I didn't mind the all maize when they were kind of at a neutral site, first game of the season back in 2017 against Florida. Obviously helps if you win as well, because you look at some of the alternates they've worn over the years. People remember them based on the outcome of the game. So that's the only thing that really matters. Wear the traditional ones. The all blues are fine too. Obviously, I mean the results speak for themselves in those outside of the Georgia game. And doesn't really have a bearing on the game. Totally agree about the West Virginia look. That would be a little weird. I will say, though, you know, Mike Sanders still talked about it last year with the leadership council and Harbaugh kind of deciding together what they're going to wear. I just kind of like it goes back to the culture in general. I just kind of like that the players have the input, that they care, they're having fun with stuff like this. So I'm kind of in the boat of whatever they decide is fine with me because – hey, they've been winning a lot of games. The culture is strong. They're having fun with this stuff. So kind of let them do what they want.
Yeah. Win the game. I mean, wear a beige potato sack for all I care. Just, win the game, take care of business.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. I'm not very fashionable, but yeah, we'll see. I tend to believe this is going to be a traditional week. I don't think we're getting maize jerseys this week. I don't think the crowd thing has any effect on it, but we'll see, and I'll be interested to see. I don't know if they've tried a blue out before, Chris. That might be something you have.
I don't think so.
Apparently, they did once about 10 years ago or something like that. That's what Dave Abloff said last week when we were chatting with him, but not really sure. I mean, it's hard to do a specific color when it gets a little bit colder out. Blue's easier than maize, which is, I think, why they went with the Penn State maize out a couple weeks ago. But the maize pom-poms are going to look good. It's going to be a great crowd.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. So we'll see what happens. Of course, a night game. It will be that field, that atmosphere just hits a little bit different at night. So we'll see what happens there. Let's go to Adam Shepardson, who has an MSU week question. He says, who do you guys think Peyton Thorne will attack via the passing game?
I think it's whoever's covering Jaden Reed, number one. Although, remember that a couple of years ago when it was, what is his name, Ricky White, again, or whoever it was, the speedster, and they put their fastest guy out there and just told him to run by him and have Rocky Lombardi throw the ball up and go get it. And that's exactly what happened. He had the game of his life. I still don't know how that happened, but it did, and give him credit, right? Terrible quarterback who had the game of his life, and that seems to happen in games like these sometimes. So I think. Yeah, but I would imagine that Jaden Reed would be a huge part of their game plan. They've got good receivers. Jim Harbaugh gave them credit today and said, look, this might be the best receiving core that we've seen so far. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but he's going to give praise to the opponent. As I wrote in my column today, I said, well, no, Peyton Thorne's a good quarterback. Not really. They run the ball well. Nah, they really don't do that well either. So if you look at the stats and where they are, and even when they were healthier, they weren't they weren't very good. So this is a team that you should handle at home, and that is the one area that Michigan State's probably going to try to exploit. Is the Michigan secondary with that receiving core, and you shut them down. I think you shut down Michigan State and you win handily.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan secondary is completely different than it was 2 years ago. They were able to, in a way, it's like, how did that happen? We were all saying that after that game, but then in hindsight, that was a terrible defense, really. I think they allowed more than 35 points a game, like 4 or 5 games in a row to end that year. I mean, it was just brutal, and the secondary was young, inexperienced. That opt-outs obviously played a factor there, but to this year's game, I mean, Michigan secondary has been very good for the most part. You've seen, some mishaps here and there. But Michigan State's wide receivers are pretty good. Jaden Reed is very, very good, potential All-American. And then Keon Coleman has kind of a knack for going up and getting the ball. We've seen that, especially over the last couple games for them, obviously with the bye last week. But so I think, if they get a couple big plays through the air, that's going to be huge for them, especially because they haven't been able to run the ball that effectively, 3.7 yards per carry. So I think that ranks 101st in the country. So they're going to need to do some of that. And Peyton Thorne is decent. He can make some good throws. He doesn't put together great games necessarily, but series, drives, throws, I mean, he can do all that sorts of stuff. So yeah, it's going to be Michigan secondary having to rise to the occasion. Pass rush got to get there. And if they can kind of shut that down and they don't allow big plays through the air, it could be a long night for Michigan State.
I see over there real quick, Anthony, account 22 saying that O-line won't give them enough time for that many deep balls. It was a 3-step drop in 2015 when they're chucking it up for Aaron Burbridge. You know what? That ball was out before that Michigan defensive line had a chance. So that's how Michigan State countered that. And to me, I think that's probably be part of the game plan this year too. So we'll see how Michigan counters it. But that's the one way and the one concern if you're a Michigan fan that, okay, they can get some big plays in the air, or maybe get some pass interference penalties and go from there. I think DJ Turner will be tested. I think somebody else said that. I think you're right.
Yeah, there are, I'm going to dive. We're diving into Michigan State this week. So excited to kind of see where the matchups might lie for Michigan. I don't know that the quick game is something that really is something that their offense does really well. I mean, you look at last year, Peyton Thorne was 19 for 30. This is against Michigan, 19 for 30, 196 yards, had a pair of picks and was sacked three times, but didn't make a ton of plays in that game, but made them late when it counted. Something that they like to do, or something that he likes to do, especially with Jaden Reed in the lineup, is I'll stop short of saying it's like 500 dead or alive, but sometimes he'll just chuck the ball down the field and hope that Jaden Reed's there to make a play. And a lot of times he is. I mean, Jaden Reed, outside of those guys at Ohio State, might be one of the top 3 wide receivers in the Big Ten. So really good player. Keon Coleman is a guy that Reed trusts and has a good rapport with. So we'll see what happens. He's coming off his best game of the year against Wisconsin. 21 for 28, 265 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, only sacked twice, but he's been up and down throughout the year. So I think what they're going to do is, when we look at who they attack, I think they're just going to attack. They're going to live and die by what they feel like they do well, and that's getting the ball to Reed, getting the ball to Coleman, and if they throw interceptions, then I guess that's how they're going down. But Peyton Reed is capable. I know there are times where he's been shaky. It looks like he might be seeing ghosts, to quote Sam Darnold. But there is a path for Michigan State to make this interesting, and it starts to me with what they can do through the air. So we'll see what happens with that. I want to stop real quick. A lot of questions in the queue. Stop real quick to talk about our friends over at the Rogue Shop. Our pals Richard and Shar have been wonderful sponsors to us throughout the football season, sponsors of our Monday night show. They are craft cannabis farmers specializing in small batch sustainable plant medicine. Of course, Richard is a disabled combat veteran, and his wife Shar is a certified CBD consultant and life coach. Rogue Shop operates out of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and they work to not only manufacture but educate you guys, our listeners, about THC-based medicines. If you're looking for products that can help diffuse stress, anxiety, soothe some chronic pain, take care of insomnia, they have a lot of things at their disposal at rogueshop.com for you guys to check out. I mean, to list it off, it'd take us a whole segment of the show to list off the products that they have. But for you guys personally, for promo code The Wolverine, you guys can get 10% off at the Rogue Shop. Each box that they send out comes with a personal handwritten letter sent with love from Mr. and Mrs. Rogue to add that extra touch to their care packages. We talk about it every week. We stand by sponsors that take care of us and that are good people. They have been tremendous. It was nice to relax last week, but during magazine weeks, during some of our busier times of the year, we're going to be double dipping soon with basketball. There is a little bit of there's some stress and anxiety with it, and some of the stuff that they've sent along have helped diffuse that. I know for me, when there's a million things going on, some of the a tiny piece of a gummy or something will kind of help me focus and keep me locked in. Pain cream, had some stuff going on with my back throughout the year. That's been very helpful. So cannot speak enough about the good things that they've done for us and their support of our show.
Yeah, and a story. My mom's friend, 79-year-old friend, couldn't sleep. She had a bit of a gummy and she slept for 9 straight hours and felt great in the morning. And she said, thank you. So our recommendations are going a long way. And I love to see that because I love, again, supporting good people with good products. You can be a good person and have a crappy product. That certainly is not the case here. These guys are fantastic and so is their product. And we certainly appreciate them.
Yeah, it's an intense week, as we all know, Michigan versus Michigan State. So if you want to unwind, the CBD gummies are fantastic. I will be taking part in that this week and most weeks going forward, but definitely a great product.
Yeah, so thank you. 10% off at the Rogue Shop with promo code The Wolverine at rogueshop.com. Of course, you guys watching on the video edition just saw Hutch pull up the website there. Thank you so much for your continued support of our show. Let's see. Move back to questions now. Quick one from Owen16. Wonder what that's in reference to. He says, "Are we beating MSU by 30 or 40?" I know I get the tone of that is a joke, but let's talk about Vegas odds real quick. Michigan was installed as I think 21.5 point favorite when the lines were officially released on Sunday. I thought I saw the again, not very good prep for a live show. I think the over under set at 54.5. Vegas projecting a hefty win for Michigan. Now, MSU, I think, is 6-2 against the spread in its last 8 games against Michigan. So there's, like I said, there are paths to them making it somewhat interesting. But Vegas expecting, I think, what our eyeballs have seen so far, fellas.
Yeah, here are the paths. A completely botched punt that you'll see once in a million games. Monsoon at night, with your backup quarterback. 8 reviews that go against you. It's crazy. Jim Harbaugh could easily be 7-0 in this series. Somehow he's 3-4, and breaks have a way of evening out, guys. You know what? I'm not making excuses for him because the bottom line is you have to win. But anything that could go wrong has gone wrong in this series for Michigan. So I don't think these guys are fazed by that. I think this group is like, okay, when we heard Donovan Edwards say, you know what, we're going to take. What did he say? He said, we're going to show no mercy. We're going to win and we're not going to show any mercy. And kind of was under the radar for a little bit until somebody picked it up. And but you know what? That's how they feel. And this is not a team, as we saw against Penn State, that gets phased when a couple things go wrong. So if Michigan State goes down, I think Anthony said maybe they'll have their scripted plays where they'll go down and maybe kick a field goal or score or something like that. And then Michigan will adjust, whatever. Michigan is the better football team. I think everybody knows it. Now, the better football team doesn't always win in this series. So we'll see what happens. But I think they're confident enough that, hey, we know we're better. We're going to do what we do. Don't overthink it. Just go out and do what you do. Don't retaliate on the cheap shots because there are going to be some. There always are. And take care of business. And I think they win this game handily.
Yeah, it should end up that way. If Michigan plays well, as simple as this sounds, if Michigan plays well, doesn't turn it over, doesn't make those big mistakes that you're talking about, they should win pretty comfortably. And, it sounds maybe arrogant or cocky to say, but Michigan has proven to be the much better team. Michigan State has had, an up and down season, mostly down for the most part. They bounced back with a win against Wisconsin in double overtime a couple weeks ago. Win looks okay now, especially after Wisconsin beat Purdue. But it was still a struggle of a game, and they still didn't do a lot of things right in that game. So if you're Michigan, you play behind the crowd, you take care of your business, and this should be at least, a couple score win. But I think in a rivalry game like this, in a game where it's basically November, a few days before November, and you're chasing a title, you get out with whatever win you can. You move on to the next week, and you continue because it's been a great season so far. But I think Michigan should feel confident going into this game. Sounds like they do from listening to these players talk at the podium and Donovan Edwards with John Jansen there. I was a little surprised he said some of those things, but that's how they feel, as you said, and I think they have a reason to feel that way. They just got to get the job done.
Well, you better back it up, right? That's the big thing. I mean, there have been teams that have talked before and lost games to Michigan State, Ohio State. Go back it up. I said this. I did a quick little Twitter Spaces on Sunday night, and I basically said, I think in my head, I know how this game will probably go. Chris, you alluded to it. MSU will probably run the greatest scripted drive in the history of Michigan State football. All the ghosts of the Spartan greats of the past will lift them up and give them an early lead in Ann Arbor. I bet Michigan probably is in a bit of a dogfight with them at the half. A little bit of rust from the bye week. It's 14-10, 17-10 at the half. And then water finds its level. Michigan makes adjustments and beats the brakes off them in the second half. That's what I feel like I've seen. I feel like that's been their MO kind of all season with a lot of these games. So, yeah, I mean, don't it's going to be physical. There will be cheap shots. There will. That's just the way they coach things up there, no matter who's in charge. Don't take the 15-yard personal foul penalty. Don't get the taunting penalty. Make the plays, get back to the huddle, hand the football to the referee. Let's just keep this thing moving. It's a night game. Let's get out of there in 3 hours or so if we can. So we'll see what happens there. Still a lot of ways to go. It's not being cocky when we talk about it. I mean, Vegas sees it that way. The computers see it this way. There's always that, if you go by ESPN's FPI, there's like a 10% chance that Michigan loses this game. I think it's probably less than that. But that's that weird gray area where weird stuff can happen, as it tends to at times in this rivalry. So typically when MSU comes into this game with 4 losses or more, it's been a blowout in favor of the Wolverines. So not a ton of concern there. Always on high alert, but not a ton.
So 30 or 40. What are we thinking? I'll say 30 if it's one of the two, probably, but it could be 40. I mean, who knows?
I'll say this: he's not taking his foot off the gas this time. If they get up, yeah, he's gonna make a statement. Yeah, tuck coming, all that crap. You know what? 2-0. The first game, half the Michigan team, three of their best players who are now in the NFL were sitting out. There were no fans. That was a terrible Michigan team. You know what? Nobody even. You look back and PJ Fleck's talking about how 2020 didn't count because they weren't going to sacrifice their progress for that one crappy season when half the teams didn't play. So good on you for winning that one. Last year was, man, a lot had to go wrong for them to lose that game, but they did. So I think they've circled this one, and we've heard the talk in the preseason for the first time about Michigan State. Where we better pay a little more attention to this one and go out and win it this year. And I think they're going to take care of business.
Yeah, and Harbaugh even said it's one of their 4 goals was to beat Michigan State, beat Ohio State, win the Big Ten, win the national championship. And there have been years where he stepped up to the podium and said, our goal is to win the next game. The next game is the most important. It's already 10 out of 10 every week. Yep. But this week on Monday today, he said, every week you strive for it to be 10 out of 10, where you're preparing as much as you possibly can, as intense as you possibly can. But if some weeks it's not quite there, this week it absolutely will be. So they're attacking it head on. They have since the beginning of the year, not just because Michigan State is 3-4 coming in. And I kind of like that mentality where it's like, okay, we'll go to your level. We'll stoop to your level and take it as serious as you do and see if you can hang.
Yeah, and it's all about, again, as Roman Wilson said last week, I won't say it on here, this is a family show. You can't do the BS. Can't do any of that stuff. And something those guys have cited frequently when we've talked to them the last couple of weeks is how terrible that bus ride home was last year. That is guys like Ryan Hayes and Mozzie Smith. That stung, and that's built a callus that those guys are ready for this game. I think they're antsy for this game. Hopefully not antsy enough where you're making mistakes and shoot yourself in the foot early on. But hey, you make just one play last year down the stretch and you win that football game, and no one was able to, even with all the crap that went on leading up to that. So I think those guys are on high alert for all that stuff heading into this game. Let's go to, there's a lot in here to choose from. Now, you guys are the best. Again, feel free if you want to get a question, get it into the queue. If you want to jump the line, use that donate feature below and throw us some beer money, if you will. Let's go to Adam Shepardson, who says, anyone from Michigan get healthy over the bye week? Hopefully Nakai Hillgreen. Chris, any injury updates?
Yeah. I don't see that one happening. I think Cade will be ready to go. And in fact, we heard he was practicing without the brace and everything else for last week. So Jim Harbaugh would not comment on that today, but they're going to potentially need him. Who knows? If something were to happen to JJ, then the guy that you want to go in is Cade. And everybody can say, well, one of those other guys. Well, no, those guys have not been playing. So Cade's the guy you want out there. So hopefully Hill Green, even if he is healthy, is this the game where you unleash him, coming back, maybe be a little bit rusty? I would rather have a guy in there like Michael Barrett, who has been playing, Khalil Mullings even behind him. And they're going to need Barrett in pass coverage as well, I think. So those are the guys I think that you run with this week. And everybody else, Eric All obviously out for the year, as we alluded to earlier this season. Now it's been confirmed. So other than that, they're relatively healthy and ready to go. They're going to be frothing at the mouth, guys. I don't think there's any question about it. Michigan State's going to be healthier too, but as somebody pointed out, they weren't very good at the beginning of the year, even when they were healthy. So this is a game that Michigan should definitely win.
Yeah, I'm with all that. Hopefully, Nikhai Hill-Green. That doesn't sound. Typically, this time of year when there's no update, that means there's nothing new to report, and nothing new to report in his case would mean that he's not really close to returning. So, DJ James says Jacob Slade is back. He'll make a difference and slow down the Michigan run game, but not enough. We'll see. Penn State thought they would slow down the Michigan run game too. Do I think
and
Michigan
Iowa?
And Iowa.
Yep.
And Urban Meyer said that Penn State, there's no doubt they will slow down Michigan's run game. I was rewatching the game and I was like, I thought they would too, slow down for sure. Not for sure, I guess. But, it's just funny. It's just hilarious. You can't script it any better. He says there's absolutely no doubt, and then 4:18 happens. So,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, football's a funny game. That's why you play the games, right? And that's why.
And I'll say this: those guys will take it seriously, right? Anthony, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but these guys, you know what? These guys are combo blocking between Oluwatimi and the guards, man. Combo blocking as well as I've seen, and blowing guys off the ball. So I don't think Jacob Slade's scaring anybody on that team.
Yeah, not. If it was Jacob Panashuk, maybe you'd be watching your knees a little closer. But
there it is.
Let's go to Jason Parkinson, who says, I don't believe Michigan needs to open the playbook versus Michigan State. Keep it simple. Fight them in a phone booth. Wear them out on both fronts. No reactionary penalties. They will try. Stay sound. I talked about this. It was either the last podcast we did or in a Twitter Spaces or something where it was, that first 6 or 7 weeks of the year is where, and really those first 3 weeks, let's be honest, guys, we didn't learn anything about this football team. So it's really the last 4 or 5 weeks is where you establish, your tendencies and what you're building off of the rest of the year. Now that we're past the bye week, we're basically into the stretch run now. This is when you start to break tendency a little bit more. And, I don't know if there might be some state secrets they're keeping to themselves, but if there's a trick play, if there's a fake punt, if there's something that they can do to, I'll say it, embarrass Michigan State in this game, I think they'll dump out the bag of tricks. I actually think we'll probably see the most creativity we've seen so far this year.
Yeah, what was the play to Cornelius Johnson a few years back when they faked they faked the run and pulled up, and then Johnson runs past him for a touchdown to make it 44-10, I believe it was.
Yep.
So that is something like that. Maybe absolutely, I can see that. So, but it's to your point, Jason. You're absolutely right. You know what? You don't need to get cute. I thought there were times against Penn State they got a little bit cute down at the goal line, and on 3rd and 2, when J.J. McCarthy threw the interception. I see all the accolades for J.J. McCarthy, and they're very well deserved. But a big part of the reason that game wasn't more in hand at halftime were because of his mistakes. And there was also another one that almost could have been on the sideline. Blake Corum makes a catch on a ball that might have been a pick six, and I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me, just thinking about it. So,
well, that's allergic here, actually.
Sorry, guys. So, but and then down at the goal line, they were trying to pull, I think, Gio El-Hadi, who gets caught up with one. And I'm like, just run it at. You're crushing him up front. You know what? If you need 3 tries to get it in from the 2, don't do something that's going to lose you 3 yards by running outside. So, but Jason, you're right. Keep it simple. Run different plays off your, different tendencies. Plays off the tendencies that you've shown, and I think you'll be just fine. I expect them to put up a lot of points on this defense.
I don't think they need to run trick plays or fake punts or anything like that, but I think they're going to get creative, and that's probably part of the nature of this game in the matchup because Michigan State's secondary is not very good. So I think we're going to see Michigan throwing the ball downfield a little bit more. I mean, you saw even Graham Mertz have some success doing that a couple weeks ago in East Lansing. So do that. Run the ball as well. Jacob Slade's back. Jacoby Windman is now playing middle linebacker for them. They are better at stopping the run than stopping the pass, but it's not saying a ton. So, yeah, do what you do. Establish the ground game, but I still think there are going to be opportunities there downfield. And, I think that's where Michigan can pull away in this game, whether it's in the first quarter, second quarter, the third quarter, the fourth quarter. There's going to be some opportunities for those plays to be made. And I will say this, too, about holding back the playbook. There's always going to be some things that you can do off of different things that as the season progresses naturally. We even saw that going into the Big Ten championship game last year where they had a couple of those plays. But this time of the year when you're fighting for a championship, and especially when you're playing a rival that's going to give you their best effort at the very least, I don't think you should hold a ton back. It's time to go at this point and do what you do best. And, if there's a play or something Michigan's coaching staff sees that could potentially work in this game, I don't see any reason why you would save it for another game, because the cliche goes, I mean, this is the most important game right now. You have to win all these games leading up to Ohio State if you want your best chance to win the Big Ten.
Can't disagree with any of that. I would go as far as to say, and this might be the hot take of the week, I mean, knowing what Michigan accomplished, Michigan State's terrible. They need to win this game. They can't go to 0-3 against Mel Tucker, but knowing what we do about what was accomplished last year and about beating Ohio State, getting to Indy, going to the college football playoff, if that doesn't happen in exchange for beating MSU by 40 points or whatever it is, I don't know. I guess there are worse things in the world. They will win this game. Sorry. I mean, I don't want to, I'm already opening myself to being clipped and old takes exposed or whatever, but just get the job done. I mean, whatever it takes. Empty the playbook, just 1 week at a time. Install brand new stuff next week for all I care. Get past this one and make it convincing too. Let's go to Patrick Snyder, who says, where in your guys' opinion do you think Blake Corum is in the Heisman running, and who is ahead of him?
Go ahead, Clay.
Yeah, I think he's probably running around fourth or fifth. CJ Stroud, to me, is the clear guy at this point, due in part to Ohio State. I mean, really just letting him kind of do that with his stats. Even in games when they're up big, you saw Toledo, I think it was, when they scored 77. Unnecessary, but whatever. You have him. Bryce Young can get himself back in. You have Hendon Hooker. Probably leaving a couple out. DTR from UCLA was up there, but he played well the other day, but they didn't get the win. So that's going to hurt him a little bit. But I will say this. I think Blake is running fourth or fifth. I think that's kind of the barrier right now for a running back. Like, you're going to stay in that little area until you surge up there and somehow win it at the end, and you have some signature opportunities coming up this weekend on a national stage is one of them. Illinois, and really, really, really good run defense. Give them credit. Is another opportunity. Ohio State, potential Big Ten championship. So the opportunities are there. And then you see what those quarterbacks do. You're going to need some help from those quarterbacks. If CJ Stroud continues on this warpath, then I don't think you're going to get it. But I think he's probably running fourth, fifth, sixth, depending on who you ask. And that's about as good as you can get at this point in the season for a running back.
Yeah, Hendon Hooker is my guy right now, I think. And he's played extremely well. And that game against Alabama probably did a ton, right, for his candidacy. So Stroud looked average against Iowa. They had the ball. I think they started 6 or 5 drives at the 30-yard line or in and settled for field goals on almost all of them. So Iowa's defense is tough that way. So that's what they do, and they make it tough for you. And I think that goes to show you that was not a 53-10 game or whatever it was. I mean, it was Iowa's offense was so bad, terrible, that should have been probably an 80-10 game, the way that how bad that offense was for Iowa. So, and the positions that they put that defense in. So I wasn't overly impressed, but I think if Blake has if he has another 200-yard game or something on national television and then continues that, then I think he'll be right there in the mix. But I do think he can certainly get an invite. There's no question to New York.
Mm-hmm. All right, a couple $2 super chats here from first from King Kane, who asked, what's it going to take for Michigan to stop the Ohio State passing game? I think the recipe. They showed you the recipe last year. I mean, keep those dudes in front of you, make them settle for field goals, get off the field in a couple critical third down situations. I don't know that you stop it by, if you get 8 sacks, yeah, that will shut things down. But that's not that system. And credit to Ryan Day and that offensive staff. They just find ways to scheme their guys open. Just got to keep those guys in front of you and not get beat deep. So, yeah, I think the recipe is what we saw last year. Any thoughts on that, fellas?
Disguising coverages. I think I think Notre Dame did a really nice job of that too in the opener, and they're not very good. And Iowa showed the same thing. You know what? Make them beat you, disguise your coverages, and make him make those good throws. You can't have receivers running wide open. You know what? The worst way to defend it was what, unfortunately, Don Brown did a couple of times there, chasing guys in man coverage and putting your guys at a disadvantage. So Don Brown again did a lot of great things here. Defending Ohio State in those later years was not one of them, but I think that's how you do it. You disguise coverages and mix up your exotic blitzes a little bit, and don't give up those huge plays. And you know what? Iowa did it. They kept them kicking field goals for the most part until they wore down there at the end. And if you do that, you're gonna have a chance to win.
Yeah, there's 3 things. Get pressure on CJ Stroud, keep everything in front, eliminate those big plays. They're going to move the ball. They're going to have, a lot of yards. We even saw that in the Michigan-Ohio State game last year, but tighten up in the red zone is the third thing. And, Michigan, as you said, Anthony, that was basically the blueprint a year ago. Holding them to 27 points is about as good as you can do against an offense with that much talent, with that good of a scheme. And it's basically that. It's going to be tougher on the road, but I think Michigan can do that. Even if you limit them to 35, this offense has enough of a gear, in my opinion, to win that game still. So you're going to have a chance, but you got to give yourself a chance by doing those 3 things.
And people won't like to hear this either, but another way you stop them is by keeping them off the field. And by doing that, that is run the football.
Right. Man ball, baby. Man ball. And we can pray for some snow flurries because we know those snowflakes can't handle that.
Oh, my goodness. I can't even imagine the meltdown at Ohio Stadium if it snows even just a fraction. Oh, God. Those poor people. Hope they layer up. Brian Legier, $2 super chat says, OSU showing their whole playbook will hurt them. I don't know if that's in reference to the Iowa game. I didn't see the Iowa game live, but I think that is the difference with I think we've talked about this before, the 3 of us too, is that teams like Ohio State run what they run and they are pedal to the metal from the first game. And there are obviously, like, when you execute as well and you scheme guys wide open as well as they do, you're able to do that. Michigan takes a little bit of a different approach every year. It's kind of a build up and a peel back. I don't know that Ohio State's the way that they call games has really hurt them all that much. It's actually served them pretty well. They still only have 1 Big Ten loss, and it was to Michigan last year. So, yeah, I'm not sure about that one, Brian. But you guys, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, they're always going to scheme something for Michigan and save something for Michigan. They always have. They always will. Jim Tressel was the best at it. You know what he knew? For example, when Chad Henne had the bad arm in 2007, he only needed a couple plays, and he picked on a couple running plays, big gains where they took advantage of maybe some over pursuit or something like that they saw on film and scored and won. In 2006, they took advantage of Michigan safeties a couple of times, saw something on film, and there's no way that team should have scored 42 points on Michigan, but they did. So there are always going to be ways and plays that you can bring out against Michigan. You know what? It's like somebody said, I think it was over here, you know what, you're going to have to keep up at times because they're going to put points on the board. Even last year when Michigan did a great job, I thought, defending them, Stroud had almost 400 yards passing. So that's just the reality of it. They're that good. They've got great receivers. So, you know what, show your best, and Michigan will just going to have to cope with it.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, go ahead.
No, just defend it. That's all.
Yeah,
for sure. I agree. I do think there's something too, though, like Ohio State, you saw it with Oklahoma throughout the years with Lincoln Riley, where, I mean, they're just getting so many game reps doing what they do, and they have so much talent on offense that it's going to be tough to stop regardless, even if they're showing all their cards. And then obviously they do hold some things back as well. So it's kind of a balance. The way Michigan plays, maybe you do hold back more. That's probably the better way to go. But Ohio State kind of throws it on the table and begs you to stop it or challenges you to stop it, and not many people can. So it works out either way. So I don't think it's a huge detriment to them.
My gut feeling too is that they're going to not give up on the run as quickly as they did last year as well. Ohio State, and rely maybe on that offensive line a little bit more and see if they can run the ball on Michigan. So it'll be fascinating. But we got 4 games before we get there, which is fantastic. So a few tune-up games, at least they damn well better be. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, but yeah, it does feel like again. Thank you, Brian, for the $2 donation. It does feel like a collision course right now. So Brian again in there with another $2. He says Ohio State versus Penn State will be a tell-all game. Yeah, Ohio State, even with, it's funny to say, coming off a 54-10 win over Iowa, might be the least impressive 54-10 win you could have. I mean, Iowa's offense is an abomination. They turned the ball over 6 times. To credit to their defense, they forced a lot of field goals. And Penn State played up. Penn State played up last week and put that Michigan game behind them. So we'll see. I think it's been a while since Ohio State has been physically tested. Again, I don't know where you guys stand on rooting for or against James Franklin coming off of the peanut butter and jelly controversy, but yeah, it will be telling, and we'll get to watch that game. It's at noon, and Michigan's playing the night game, so that is another one of those Big Ten pecking order games.
Watch Penn State beat Ohio State somehow, and then sneak into that East Division championship again, like they did in 2016 or whatever, when they were the 3rd best team in that division. But I don't believe in transitive property stuff. Anything can happen on any given weekend, so we will find out. You know what? For example, let's go back to when Iowa beat Ohio State. What was it, 55 to something 3 or 4 years ago, right? That didn't prevent Ohio State from beating Michigan or winning the Big Ten championship. So you can have a bad day. You can have a team that rises up and then all of a sudden plays, out of its mind and beats you. But I do anticipate Penn State giving Ohio State more trouble than they gave Michigan. And then what's RJ Young going to say, Anthony? Is he going to compare those two? That guy, I don't know who he is really, to be honest with you, but some of the takes that I've seen from him are some of the dumber things I've ever seen on Twitter, and that's saying something. But now we know everything about these two teams because Iowa won 55-10 and Michigan only beat Iowa, or Ohio State beat Iowa by that, and Michigan only beat them. That doesn't work that way, man. Come on, do you know football? It just doesn't work that way. But Brian, I agree with you that I think Penn State's going to give them at least a battle and slow that offense down, and especially in that environment, that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I wasn't going to invoke RJ Young in this show, but here we are. I am so mini rant here. I am so tired of the buildup to every Michigan Ohio State game of comparing box scores and comparing who did what this week versus this opponent. Well, there's your comparison. That's all you need to know. They will settle it on. There's nothing to compare. They will settle it on the field on November 26th. So don't show me a box score. Don't show me time of possession. I don't care about any of that. And I get tired too of the, last week Michigan showed in that win over Penn State, they're the challenger to Ohio State, and the big challenger to Ohio State. Michigan's the reigning Big Ten champion. So I get a little tired of the whole, big bad Ohio. I mean, Vegas has them as the favorite. That's great. That's fine. Michigan is the reigning Big Ten champion until someone else wins it, right? So the fact that we're still doing this, who's the challenger to Ohio State? Michigan's playing as well as anyone in college football is right now on both sides of the football. They play a clean football. They don't beat themselves. They've been dominant in the trenches. Let's see Ohio State prove that they're the supposed favorite that everyone says they are, and they'll settle it on the field. But I'm just tired of the paper discourse. Like, watch games and take into account what's still on the line. So I'm annoyed by that. Yeah. That's all.
Yeah,
what Brian says. Go ahead, Clay.
I was just gonna say, I mean, we learn something from every game. You can learn, we could learn something about Penn State, Ohio State this weekend, but I mean, look at 2018. Ohio State maybe should have lost to Maryland, and then they go and blow out Michigan the next week. You mentioned, last year they kill Michigan State, who beat Michigan, and then we saw what happened on November 27th. So it doesn't. Yeah, I don't really even know what the argument is. Maybe he's, replying basically to people who were saying Michigan should be ranked higher. I don't really think that stuff even matters at this point in the season right now, especially when the rankings have no bearing on the college football playoff. But it is what it is. That tweet, I saw some of the replies where everyone was like, well, some people replied to my reply to him saying that's all he does. He's just a troll anyway. So I don't really know who he is either.
Clearly.
But it was
Put Brian's
great to
$5
see.
question. Yeah, back up there for a second. Put Brian's. We're gonna get for his fight. You're right. You're right. And that's a better point, Brian, that you make, is that they have not played anybody. If we look at Notre Dame, you know what, they were in a dogfight with them for the better part of 3 quarters, at least. And granted, it was the first game of the year, but Notre Dame had some athletes out there and they gave them trouble. So this is going to be a good measuring stick as to, hey, you know what, if they go into Happy Valley and they blow them out 49-10 or something like that, then I'll be impressed and I'll say, wow, you know what, these guys, because that is tough. And Penn State almost always plays them tough there. So I don't anticipate that happening. And as a matter of fact, I think that Penn State's going to play, they're going to give them a game, at least for a while. So, but good point, Brian. Looking forward. I can't wait to see that one. That's a good thing about a 7:30 game, is that you get to watch some of those fun games before that too.
Yeah, and the one thing that Michigan was able to do on Iowa, at Kinnick Stadium, mind you, was run the football and do so unapologetically. So we'll see what happens November 26th. I'm tired of if you're a national guy and you have all, this big umbrella of teams that you're just watching, you're not watching, you're just looking at box scores. There's no way you can be locked into teams when you have that much to cover. We've already addressed more of it than we need to, but settle on the field. I'm tired of the paper comparisons. We'll see what happens. So last year, Michigan didn't have the formula to beat Ohio State. They beat Ohio State. So we'll see what happens when they play on the field. I'm going to check for any other. We're going to end on this one from Zion Schaub, who asks, sorry for joining late. It's fine. You join whenever you'd like. The replay, of course, available on the YouTube channel after the fact and in your podcast feeds. Any advice? And Zion's asking, any advice for my first night game?
Avoid the drunken Sparties, number one. You're going to have people getting in your face probably, and they're going to be there all day and looking to mix it up. I had a buddy get in trouble as the second man in like a hockey fight one year, and after taking a cheap shot, and he countered with a big right hand, as Mickey Redmond might say, and ended up in the clink. So that's number one. Number two, dress warmly, brother, because it's going to be cold up there. It's going to be, I think, 40-something degrees at kickoff, but when you have those coats, and I'm not condoning this, sometimes there are pockets for, little libations in there that you can smuggle in. I'm just saying, like, I mean, like little bottles of water or something like that to quench your thirst.
The little tiny Absapure bottles, right?
Exactly.
The official water of Michigan athletics, of course. No free.
There you have it. And we aren't getting paid for that.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
Any advice for him, Clay?
Get there early if you're going to tailgate and just enjoy the long tailgate, because that's fun. Some of the noon games, it's kind of crammed in where maybe you're not going to eat before or whatever, depending on timing and getting there. So if you're going to tailgate, do that. And yeah, he says he's from the UP, knows how to stay warm. So there you go on that. I will say, being out in the stands, my experience, when I was just a fan out in the stands, just an average Joe, as I still am, but now I'm in the warm press box. It didn't feel that cold when Michigan was winning, no matter what I was wearing, but it would get a little colder. So hopefully this Saturday night, they will be winning, and you won't have any Sparties get in your face after. I've had that happen too. So hopefully it'd be smooth sailing for you, Zion.
Yeah, Zion, just wear your moose hunting gear, and you'll be fine. Yeah,
I heard he's former neighbors with Tom Izzo up there too. So
yeah, I love the Yoopers, man. Those are good people up there.
Yeah, and they always back in the day when I was going to games as a pedestrian, so to speak, we called them sock buddies, right? Those tiny little bottles of Fireball.
Yes, sir.
So
I knew that was coming. I knew somebody was going to say it. Yeah.
Central Michigan University.
Different kind of sock buddy there, Hutch.
Yeah. But all right, fellas. I think this is probably a good place to call it. A lot of. It's going to be a fun week. I think the build up to this game always is. It's a little more heated, just because this is the backyard brawl. This is a neighborly rival. You could go out to get your paper or get your mail in the morning, and your neighbor across the street has the gruff Sparty flag or has a Spartan sweatshirt on. This one's different because it's the one we live in every single day. Those hooligans south of the state line, we can, we deal with them when we need to. But the Michigan State fans are dealt with on a daily basis. And some of them are family and friends, and we love them dearly, but this is not the week for that. So Chris Ballas, Clayton Safey, Thank you so much again for your time. Producer Hutch behind the scenes, doing an elite job as always. Not so secretly rooting for Penn State this weekend, probably, despite the fact that they are wasters of Uncrustable sandwiches. But
And
yeah, that'll do.
crybabies.
That's going to do it for us. Chris Ballas, Clayton Safey, Anthony Broom. The three of us will be back on Thursday for our Michigan State preview. So be locked into that. And again, thank you guys so much for your support. We'll talk to you again soon.